Ciao, this is Marc Marcantonio for westernbass.com. Today I'm going to show you a couple of rigs and ways that I like to fish deep water, particularly in the winter time, in order to catch all different species of bass, both largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass. These two techniques I'm going to show today work for both. The first technique that I'm going to talk about is the venerable Yamamoto grub, single tail grub. And I fish these in two sizes during the winter. I fish the 4-inch size like I have right here, and I also fish the 5-inch super grub on days when the fish seem to be particularly active. But most days, day in and day out, I'll use the 4-inch size, the smaller one. The grub is deadly even in the summertime. It's actually deadly year-round. But in the wintertime, it's particularly good. And one reason I really like it is because it's a very compact bait. In the wintertime, bass aren't looking for a huge meal. Their digestive tract works at a much slower pace in the winter due to the colder water. They still eat, but it takes a lot longer to digest their meals, and they tend to only eat food that comes to them. They're not big on chasing down their prey during the winter time, because their activity level and the activity level of the prey are all kind of in slow motion. And because of that, bass as predators tend to eat smaller meals better. And when you're trying to get that hook in the fish and be able to land the fish, a compact meal works better so that they can completely engulf the bait and get the hook in their mouth so that you can set the hook and land the fish. So the first thing that I do is I use these grubs, these single tail grubs, and here's one rigged on a football head, standard football head rig. This is the 4-inch Yamamoto single tail grub in color number 208, I believe. Let's confirm that. Yes, it's 208, which is the watermelon with red flake. And I like it in both watermelon with red flake, plain watermelon, 194J fading watermelon, and also 297, which is the green pumpkin with large black flake. So any of those colors work really good in the winter time. But you may be wondering, this is a small football head. It's a 1/4 ounce. It's only a 1/4 ounce. And you're thinking wintertime fishing. He said fishing deep. Well, deep to me is in the winter is 40 to 70 feet deep. And I'm often fishing and catching bass in 70 feet of water on this very grub. So the part that most people haven't figured out that really makes the difference in your success in the wintertime in using such a small compact lure is to have the tackle that you need to be able to get this lure all the way to the bottom, and so that it crawls across the bottom of the lake. And to do that, line size is the most critical factor. I'm using McCoy 10-pound test braided line. It only has the diameter of 3-pound test monofilament. So you're talking about a very, very thin braid line that cuts through the water, has very little water resistance. So it cuts through the water and sinks through the water very quickly because it is so thin, it just slices right through the water, and that's key. And then I tie to that an 8-pound or 10-pound test fluorocarbon leader. And that fluorocarbon leader gives me the abrasion resistance I need when it's bouncing across rocks, because braid is not very abrasion resistant, and you'll have problems with it breaking if you're using straight braid over the rocks. So it's important to use that fluorocarbon leader for the snag resistance the abrasion resistance more than anything else. And the good thing about this light jig head is that it bounces over obstructions very enticingly, rather than snagging in them. So you can fish pretty heavy rock and not get snagged despite having the open hook, because of the fact that the head is light. So let's look at this hook for a minute, because to many people a hook is a hook, but to me it's very important to use the right hook. And I pour these heads myself, which you can do, anyone can do, and I use the Gamakatsu. The model number is 111 in the 4/0 size, and so the whole number to indicate it's the 111 style, and the 4/0 is a 11114, and that is a 100 pack that I'm holding right here. And the thing that you'll notice on these hooks that's different than the typical round bend hook is the upswept design of the shank. Right in this area right here, the hook sweeps up, and the reason I like that is because when this is bouncing along the bottom, the hook is up off the bottom. It's above the grub. The entire bend is above the grub, which I think makes it a lot easier for a bass to pick it up off the bottom and get the hook deeply into its mouth. Rather than one that's laying completely flush, it's harder for them in the wintertime when they're not real active to suck that in. And I just notice a lot better hookups and landing a lot more fish by using that O'Shaughnessy bend, typical old school O'Shaughnessy bend in the Model 111 4-aught hook. And it's hard to use a 4-aught hook with a 1/4 ounce head in most football head jig molds, but you can make it work if you hold the mold together very, very tightly. So I use a Lamaglass rod. It's a 703 spinning rod, and that has the perfect action for being able to feel sensitive bites. And the important thing is, when a fish bites, you're just going to feel your rod load up, and at that time you reel as fast as you can to get your deep bend in the rod, and then give a hook set and fight the fish back to the boat. So that's fishing a Yamamoto single tail grub in deep water, as deep as 70 feet deep, with no problem by using that narrow line. You can also use 15-pound test line. Sometimes it's better to go up to a 3/8 ounce jig with the 15-pound test, and then you can get by with a 10 or a 12-pound test leader in that case. So now the second rig that I want to cover is the typical drop shot rig. And this I use as a vertical approach, whereas with the when using the single tail grub, you're using a horizontal approach. So on days when you need to get directly over a structure and fish that specific structure alone, pinpoint the structure, I do better with a drop shot rig, and I catch fish up to 70 feet deep on that as well. And the key factor to pay attention to when using the drop shot rig in the winter is your leader length and the size of the lure. So my favorite lure, bar none, is the Yamamoto shad shaped worm. And the Yamamoto shad shaped worm, this is color 031, which is one of my favorite standby colors. And I'll lay one down here, and it's got a little bit of flake to it, which I doubt is even noticeable in that depth. But the shape, the compact size, is just perfect for a wintertime bite. And the hook that I use it with is a Gamakatsu number 4 split shot hook, drop shot hook, split shot / drop shot hook in size 4, tiny number 4 hook. I don't know if you can see that. This is the number 4 hook, very small, and I just use a typical nose hook rig. Just put it through the hook a little bit, through the nose, so that it hangs. Makes for a nice compact bait that's easy for the bass to suck in. The shape and profile are perfect. The buoyancy level is perfect. And one of the keys is to use a QuickDrop drop shot weight. QuickDrop drop shot weights are different than the other weights that you fish, and it's a very important shape for being able to fish in deep water because it's a teardrop shape. And being a teardrop shape, these particular weights were computer designed to be perfectly hydrodynamic and aerodynamic for casting, but hydrodynamic to be able to sink straight to the bottom. And that's an important feature, especially when fishing deep water. And the reason why that's important, let me get this hooked up and I'll show you. It's got the quick release clip on it, which you just poke the end of the line through and the clip grips your line. These particular clips are outstanding because it'll grip 2-pound tests perfectly well, all the way up to 40-pound tests. And you notice the leader length I have is short. This one's about 5 inches long. I even go shorter. Oftentimes I have it right to the tail of the bait when the bait's hanging down. But the main point is you want it to be close to the bottom, because most of these bass are laying on the bottom with their belly touching the bottom in the wintertime when they're in deep water. They don't like to use a lot of energy or buoyancy to keep themselves up off of the bottom. So they're laying with their bellies flat on the bottom. And you want this bait so that when your weight is on the bottom, the bait is just at eye level or mouth level or just above, so that they can see it silhouetted against the surface. It's a lot easier for them to see it if it's slightly above them, because they're looking up against the light surface of the water surface. Rather than looking down at it into a dark bottom, it's a lot harder for them to see it. So you want to get the length just right, and that length is key to getting the fish to be able to bite when they're not very active. Another reason for using this tiny hook is because it doesn't weigh the bait down. It gives you a livelier presentation. But more importantly, it's a much thinner diameter wire than you can get in a number 2 hook or a number 1 hook or a larger hook. And if you watch the video that follows and see a 6-pound largemouth that I caught on this hook, you'll see this hook is penetrated right through the tooth patch at the front nose or the front mouth of the bass. And that's actually bone there. And this hook is so small a diameter, it slips right through a tooth socket and firmly wedges in that tooth patch, so it prevents the fish from being able to get away. So again, a 3/8 ounce quick drop weight, which is very important because it sinks. And when I say sinking straight, the reason why that's so important is because you're fishing deep water, and a bass may be sitting on the bottom and you drop your bait to it. That bass is not going to move very fast. It's going to move slow, and when it moves up to the worm, it just grabs the worm and stays still. It doesn't move away like it does in the summertime. So you don't feel your rod tip loading up. And if you're using a different shape weight, the weight tumbles. Those other shapes tumble when they go to the bottom. And when they tumble, they pull the line in the same direction the weight traveled. And when your weight hits the bottom, you've got all this slack in your line. And if a fish bites it, you won't even feel it. There's no way you can feel it. So you want to hold your rod tip close to the surface of the water, drop your bait straight down, and as soon as it hits the bottom, engage the reel and flip the bail over, or if you're using a bait caster, engage the reel with turning the handle and take up the slack immediately and feel. And then slightly lift up the rod tip to feel if one grabbed it right away. And I can do that the second after it hits the bottom. When I'm using a quick drop, I'll be able to feel if that fish had grabbed it. If I don't feel it, then I'll just slowly work the bait straight up and down vertically, and I'm always watching my slack. If the boat starts drifting or the wind blows, or if you're fishing a river, deep river, and the current's moving it, I always make sure my line remains vertical. If it gets off to the side or off to an angle in the winter time, I'll reel it all the way back in and drop it straight back down again. If I get an angle in it, I reel it back in and drop it straight back down. Unlike the summer, that's one of the keys in winter bass fishing. So watch the 2 videos that are attached here. The first one is a very short video about using the single-tail grub and success. My friend Doug Hanson from Camarillo is the fisherman in that one, and right after that is the video of myself catching a 6-pound largemouth in Lake Casitas in the wintertime in deep water on a drop shot rig, on this exact rig right here, the 031 Yamamoto shad shaped worm and a 3/8 ounce quick drop. And there's Doug with another Lake Casitas bass.
Good boy.
Nice fish. Ate his grub real good. Using a Yamamoto single tail grub. Nice fish. All right. That's the way to do it.
Come on, let go.
All right, nice Yamamoto single tail 5-inch super grub on a football head.
Custom colored by Doug.
All right.
All right, Lake Casitas. Marc Marcantonio got a big Lake Casitas fish. There, so here he comes. Oh, geez, it's a huge fish. It might be the one I caught this morning, actually. It's the same place.
It might be. That's the second jump. He came completely out of the water. Oh, man. Oh, there he goes. Trying to keep a nice even bend in my rod. That's the key. Just got a little tiny hook. Whoa, 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 there he goes.
Are you back reeling him?
Tiny number 4 hook.
Are you back reeling?
Oh yes, I'm back reeling like a speed demon when he's going. Whoa.
This is a big fish, folks.
Yes, indeed. Daggum, I'm losing line. I'm not gaining it.
Out on Doug Hanson's guide service, where we always put them on pigs.
Oh, man.
Oh, geez, my rod's
That's
jumping.
why I wanted to come here. This is exactly why I wanted to come here. Now we're coming. Getting some line now.
All right, gaining on him finally.
He's going to jump again.
He's got real light line. Little number 4 Gamakatsu hook. Holy moly, look at the size of that mouth. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
I think he's bigger than yours.
I don't know, it could be.
Oh man, if I wasn't back reeling, I'd lose this. I'd have lost this fish by now. And he pulled drag. When I set the hook, it was like a log, and then he just ripped drag.
Yep, I saw that.
Oh man, oh, there he goes. Stay on, buddy, stay on.
I'm running out of
Stay
film.
on. Getting close. Oh, nice. Oh, stay on. Oh my gosh. Yes. Ah, yes. That's what you come here for. Yeah, man. Look at that. Look at the fat belly.
Yeah, he's almost as big as the one I got this morning.
Oh, look at that hook. Right in through the tooth patch, right in the bone. That hook would never come out. I'm going to have to use the pliers to get it out.
All right, right there. Yep, folks, that is how you do it.
Unbelievable.
I have to back up so I can fit him into the screen. All right, Marcantonio.
Man, that's what I come here for.
All right.
Okay, snapshots. So, try these rigs. If you use them, I know it'll improve your success when fishing deep water. Ciao. This is Marc Marcantonio for westernbass.com.